Hey y'all, welcome to or welcome back to our very bookish channel. Smoochie is playing over here, so if you hear like some snorts and chewing noises, then she's got a little toy she's chewing on. And maybe I can get her over here to show her to you guys in a little bit, but today we are going to be chatting. This is going to be a very chatty video because we are going to be talking about all the book releases coming up in May and June that we are anticipating, and boy oh boy, there's some good ones. So this is a very exciting Smoochie. So these next 2 months are, I mean, really this whole year is like full of good new book releases. But these next 2 months are packed with them. I think I have 15, maybe 16, 15 or 16 ish anticipated releases. And I really think that I want to read all of them. A couple of them I've already read because I've got ARCs, but we'll get into that.
Hey guys, I am very excited because today we are doing May and June most anticipated reads. And I was going to apologize, but I'm not sorry because I have a lot of books to go over today. I actually took some out of here and it was hard to determine what to take out or, you know, should I really leave it in because there's so many. I decided to just stick with what I got, and I have a total of just under 30. That's a lot. And of course, because it's May the 4th be with you, I figured this was the perfect shirt to wear for doing May and June most anticipated. Since there is a lot to talk about, I'm just going to go ahead and start. But first, just wanted to let you guys know how I look up books to determine what I want to read or what I want to talk about in the video. I get a lot of emails and lists from publishers, Goodreads. There's all kinds of different lists that come to my email. I look at Goodreads, of course, and I look at websites like barnesnoble.com. I get Shelf Awareness, which is an email newsletter too. So I am looking all different kinds of places to see what's coming out, and that's how I have the list. Not to mention, I do have a small stack of ARCs that also help me know what's coming out, but also I'm going to be able to read those and let you guys know if they are worth it. So the first one is called My Favorite Terrible Thing by Madeline Henry, and it comes out the first day of May 1st. And this one is about a world famous author. Her name is Claire Ross, and she has disappeared. She's vanished. It's actually her wedding day, and it's in the Hamptons. And there is a detective who is really known, I guess, to be able to solve unsolvable things, disappearances. And her name is Nina Travers. So Nina's the one that figures out that clues to where the author is in one of her books. If it might be more than one of her books. But as she follows the trail of clues, it becomes a spiraling path of secret love, obsession, and death. What Nina finds is so shocking, even she never saw it coming. So that one sounded really interesting. I haven't read anything by Madeline Henry. It didn't mention if this is a first time book by her, but that one really intrigued me, and I have a feeling I'm going to be picking that up as soon as I can get my hands on it.
The first one that I want to talk about is coming out on May 7th, and that is called Fireborne Blade by Mia Corland. This book looks so pretty. I love the detailed stenciled edges of this book, so obviously it caught my eye, but also the description of the book just sounds so good. I was researching this book, and so as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, let me see what that's going to be about, and it just sounds so good. The first edition of this book, which I've already pre-ordered my copy, you guys, you know me, I have to get my hands on it, but the first edition, it says will have sprayed edges, resources, exclusive in papers, and design features, and that's going to be from Barnes & Noble. So I have already pre-ordered my book from Barnes & Noble, and I'm highly anticipating getting my hands on that one. The description of this book starts out saying, "The king of Yusan must die." And of course that, would catch anyone's attention. But in reading more of the description, you find out that this king is a horrible king. He's a horrible ruler. He is not a person that should be in any position of power over people. Anyone put in any kind of position of power over people should always work for the people and should always work to try to improve the lives and the quality of life of their people. And this king does not do that. Actually, he works against them. He prisons them. He enslaves them. He brings down their quality of life, and he does this all just to help support the nobles and all of his friends get richer and enrich themselves at the cost of his people. So there's this group of 5 assassins that come together and decide, you know what, this king, he's got to go. This king's bad. He's got to go. So they kind of team up and work together to take out this king. But the only problem is this alliance is very thin. I mean, you're talking about assassins themselves. They're very skilled liars. And at the end of the day, if and when this king is taken out, only one of them can take his place and be ruler. So I'm really excited to follow these 5 assassins and kind of, this whole like tricking each other, backstabbing each other, fighting their way to take the king out, and then also who's gonna rule, who's gonna be the last man standing. So at least that's what the description implies, and I am really excited to get my hands on this book.
The next one is The Return of Ellie Black by Amiko Jean, coming out May 7th. So for 20 years, Detective Chelsea Calhoun's sister vanished when they were teenagers. Ever since, she's been searching for signs, for closure, and to help other missing girls. And in Chelsea's line of work, happy endings are rare. Ellie Black, who disappeared without a trace 2 years earlier, has been found alive. Something is not right with Ellie, who won't talk, and it's up to Chelsea to find the answers. I've been wanting to read this one, and I kept thinking it was already out, but it's not out till May 7th. The next one I've been trying to win an ARC for. Goodreads has had, I think, like 3 different giveaways for this book, and I haven't won any of them. And it's called The 5-Year Lie by Serena Bowen. It comes out May 7th. In a spine-tingling thriller, Ariel Cafferty gets a text from the only man she's ever loved, and his name is Drew, and he's been dead for several years now, so that's obviously weird for her to get a text from someone she thought she was dead. What happens next causes more questions as she races to find out what really happened to Drew. Just that little snippet made me want to read it. So coming out May 7th.
So on May 14th, I actually have 2 anticipated releases, and the first one is called The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry, and I was able to get an ARC from Edelweiss. I think that's how you say it. I was saying Edelweiss when I was talking about this website, and that's just how, when I see the word, I say it in my head. But Jen corrected me, and it's actually Edelweiss. You can look it up on Google pronunciation or something. So from now on, I'm going to be trying to pronounce it correctly. But I did have a advanced reader copy of this. Jen mentioned she thought that she wanted to also read this book, and we could do it for a vlog for you guys, because it's kind of like a little different than anything that we've done in the past as far as reading vlogs go. It is a horror novel, and I have read plenty of horror novels, and I have even done some ARC reviews and talked about them on the channel. And I actually do have lots of horror upcoming releases that I'm anticipating, so I'm really excited about the horror genre in books right now. They've got some looking like good books coming out. Smoochie! Come here. You gonna show everyone your pretty face? Look, here's Smoochie. Aw, this is my little smoocher. She's in a very playful mood right now, and she makes these kind of like growling, purring noises. You gonna make a noise? You make a noise? Oh, so yeah, here's Smoochie. Smoochie's about 6 months old, and she is a little terror. She's really in this phase where she wants to chew on everything, so we have to like keep all of our shoes and house shoes, flip-flops, all of that, make sure that's up. You can actually jump pretty high for a short dog too, so like even some shorter tables are not safe. They're not safe from the Smoochie Mooch. Anyways, instead of keeping this held up, I'm just gonna put a picture up here because I'm not sure how easily you can see this since it's like in the Edelweiss reader. I think we're gonna do a reading vlog on this, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but in this book you're following Harry, and Harry is a single mom, and she also is a horror movie buff, and she jumps on the opportunity to work as a house cleaner for this retired film director. And Harry really needs this job to support her son, but she starts hearing noises coming from a locked door. She's immediately suspicious because this retired horror film director, he lives alone, and she knows no one has come in or visited the house, so it's kind of creepy. It's kind of giving you creepy vibes, but she's conflicted because she wants to keep her job. And I think when she starts to uncover what's going on behind this locked door, that's when things start getting really scary and really creepy. And I know Jen's gonna talk a little more about this book, so I'm just gonna wrap it up right here.
And the next one's by an author that I've been seeing books for a while now, and I kept wanting to read her. Her name is Christina Henry, and the one coming out is called The House That Horror Built, and it comes out May 14th. But she has done some retellings of, I know there's a Alice in Wonderland retelling, Peter Pan, Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland, Red Riding Hood, and all of them just seem like different, like horror fantasy twist on the classic fairy tales that are out there. So I really felt like this one might be the first one I try by her, even though I'm an Alice in Wonderland fan and I've been wanting to read that one. This one sounded quite intriguing. It's about a horror movie fan that gets a house cleaning job for a famous horror film director. And he lives alone. There was some kind of family tragedy and he disappeared from the film industry. Harry, that's her name, is the housekeeper, marvels at all the props at his house, but she keeps her head down and keeps to her job until she starts hearing voices behind a locked door asking for help. So that part just felt like obviously a horror movie, but I think that one sounded like something I can definitely pick up and get lost in. So I wanted to maybe try that author on this one.
So the next book coming out on May 14th is by an author that I've enjoyed in the past, and it's called When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. This author is more widely known for her Divergent trilogy, and I think eventually there was like a fourth book they put out later called Four, so it's kind of more like a Divergent series now. I read the original trilogy when it came out a long time ago. It's a YA dystopian novel. It's been turned into movies. I'm sure you've heard of it. And this is an adult fantasy novel by this author, so I was very curious and kind of excited to see that she's putting out some new content and to try to get my hands on this book. This is a very short book. It's only like 170-ish pages from what I can tell, so it should be a very quick read. So in this urban fantasy novel, you're following Demeter and Alla, and they decide to team up together to hunt down this witch, and I'm sure they both have their own individual motives, but the thing is that they have to hunt down this witch and take her out in one day, or else Alla can't get what she needs to out of the bargain. There's like a time constraint. Smoochie is a time constraint on the item that Alla needs to get what she needs to out of this bargain. So we will see how this one turns out.
The next one was one I had thought, okay, maybe I'll take this one off because I couldn't get a read if this would be definitely something I would want to read. But it's called Very Bad Company by Emma Rosenblum. Comes out May 14th. Every year, executives at the trendy tech startup called Aurora gather the company's top employees for an exclusive retreat in Miami. And this year, Caitlin, Aurora's newest hire, is joining the team as head of events. When a high-level executive vanishes after the first night, the disappearance has the potential to derail the future of the company's sales and cost everyone on the team millions. It's a slick send-up of corporate culture wrapped in a captivating mystery. So it sounded intriguing, but it's also something that I don't know how much that would really grab my interest. Sometimes the ones about big corporations seem kind of repetitive, so I don't know. That one could very easily fall off this list. Next one's by Kate White. She's someone I've also wanted to read in terms of thrillers, and it's called The Last Time She Saw Him, and it also comes out May 14th. I have a couple, I think, on May 14th. There's several on May 14th. Must be a big day for publishing. So Kiki recently broke off her engagement to Jamie, but when she sees him at a party, she knows it was for the best for both of them. Hours later, he's found shot, and the police are going to rule it a suicide. Kiki feels he would not commit suicide, sets out to find out what happened. Why does that sentence not sound right? I remember when I was reading the description, it said she has a conversation with him and he seems happy. Both of them kind of felt like, okay, this is for the best. It sounds like once she starts investigating, they had thought it was a suicide, but then they start to suspect her because she starts doing things that make her seem that she may have done something. It sounded like a fast-paced novel that I can get lost in. Right, another one on May 14th. It's called She Left by Stacey Gray. I also remember entering and finding out about this book through a Goodreads giveaway contest. I don't know if that one's over or not. I mean, I enter so many of those. Sometimes you get those rejection emails and sometimes, you know, you hear nothing at all. So this one is about 20 years ago. She left a party. And it was lucky that she did because 5 of those friends that she had left at that party end up murdered. And it was called the Memorial Day Massacre. It shocked the community and Amy can't escape the media circus. Then 10 people connected to those murders are invited to a remote cliffside house by a journalist looking to do a story on the murders. A storm closes in and things quickly turn as Amy realizes things aren't what they seem at this house. And I feel like that concept, not only, there's another book that had like a similar concept, but I feel that is a concept similar to another book. I don't know if I necessarily read that. I mean, Daisy Darker is kind of like that, but not really. I mean, they're stranded on a house. That one's by Alice Feeney. It's one of my favorite books, but they're stranded in a house, but it's all family. So this one was a little twist version of that. And I think that might be why I was drawn to it, but that's going to be on my list for May. So the next one, also May 14th, is one I have an arc for, Witches of Bellinas. I don't know if I'm saying that right. By J. Nicole Jones. Tansy and her husband, Guy, moved to a coastal town of Bellinas, if I'm saying that right. I don't know if it's based on a real town. And everything seems fine until Tansy, and that's a very interesting name, Tansy. Tansy starts questioning everything and thinks they have gotten themselves into a cult. And this one sounded very similar to a book I had read last year. And that one was, I believe, a horror book. And it was about the husband was an author and a school invites him to, and it was a really hilarious book. I remember really liking it and enjoying it. But the author was invited to this school. The wife, I think it's his wife, might be like fiance, girlfriend, didn't want to go because she was familiar with this town and she knew it was just bad news. And they end up going. And obviously a lot of strange things occur. And I'm forgetting the name of the book, of course, and I didn't write it on the card. So I'm going to put it on the screen right now and when I edit this so that I want to say it's Edenville. I hope I am right on that, but I'm also forgetting the author. So I'll put that on the screen. And Amanda can also put a picture of it right there. But it sounded similar, so I don't know if I want to read that storyline all over again. But this one, that book was very much like campy horror. And I really enjoyed that book. This one doesn't necessarily give vibes of campy horror. This seems a little more serious. So maybe it'll be, I don't know, a different version of it that I'll enjoy. And I got a free version of it, so I might as well read it. Can't pass up an arc, and I'll do an arc review for it. hopefully I like it as much as Aidenville. At least I think that's the name of the book.
So next on May 21st, I have 2 books that I'm anticipating highly. And the first one I want to talk about is called Heavenbreaker. And Jen actually got a copy of this arc. And I am not a jealous person. I don't get jealous of other people. I was a little jealous. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted this arc so bad. But Jen is a lovely person and she is going to let me borrow it after she reads it. So that helped quench this burning jealousy that I had bubbling up in my chest. So we absolutely want to do an arc review for you guys, of course, with this book, but the publisher doesn't want anything leaked and they're not asking for reviews. They weren't giving you this copy in exchange for review. They just said, you know, we want you to enjoy this book. So if Jen reads and films an arc review for you guys, we won't be able to put it out until release.
All right, the next one, I was even afraid to show that I got an arc for it, and you'll see why in a minute. So I happened to get, and I was really hoping Amanda got it too, and she did not. So when I finish it, especially if I love it, I'm going to send it to her. But it's called Heavenbreaker by Sarah Wolf. This comes out May 21st. And at first I was going to read what was on the back of it. But as I was looking on the inside, I noticed this message, and I'll read it. At least I think I'm allowed to read it. Dear reader, congratulations. You are lucky enough to have one of a very limited number of early reading copies made available for this book. This early reading copy is the property of Entangled Publishing and is a confidential work product. Every effort is being taken to ensure that no portion of this manuscript is revealed prior to its official release date. So please note that discussing any material elements or quoting any section of this book prior to May 21st, 2024 is expressly prohibited and is protected under the privacy and copyright laws of the United States. This book is for your reading enjoyment only. Thank you, Entangled Publishing. So that note scared me to do anything. I was going to do an arc review, but now I'm not going to be doing an arc review until it's published for sure. The category in the back says sci-fi. I decided to just read what's on Red Tower's website about the book, because obviously they have that on their website. I'm sure that's okay. So on Red Tower, the website, it says they take what they want, they kill who they want. Now she's going to end them all. Pure adrenaline shot of a read about retribution, catastrophic attraction, and becoming the fury within the machine. So I haven't read it yet, so I can't ruin or break any laws by saying anything about it, but I do plan on reading it. I was very excited to get it. And the arc review will not be published until May 21st, just in case. It said reading enjoyment only. So I won't talk about it until after May 21st. I haven't seen anything like that. Have you guys? Maybe I haven't been paying attention to my arcs. I hope I haven't been breaking some kind of law on the inside of the covers. But when I saw that, I almost feel like that's a plot to a book. It was interesting.
The next book coming out on May 21st that I'm anticipating is Long Time Gone by Charlie Donnelly. And we did a reading vlog for Charlie Donnelly's Those Empty Eyes. It was our first or second reading vlog. I can't remember. It was a long time ago, like a year ago. Because we've been on YouTube for a year now. But we did a reading vlog for Those Empty Eyes, and I loved that book. It was a very, very layered thriller, and I really enjoyed all the aspects of that book. So when I saw that Long Time Gone was coming out, I'm really excited to get my hands on this book. I hope that it's another 5-star read from this author. I haven't read any of his backlist yet. I want to. I have bought one of his books. I bought, I think, The Suicide House by him, and I do want to read that. It is on my physical TBR, but I just haven't got around to reading his books yet. But I'm really highly anticipating this one coming out. Based on the description of this book, it feels like this book is going to be just as gripping and just as layered as Those Empty Eyes. So in this book, you're following Sloane. And I really like that name Sloane, but doesn't that feel kind of 80s? Or maybe there was a character from some movie. Wait, isn't Ferris Bueller? Isn't there Sloane? Isn't that his girlfriend in Ferris Bueller? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, getting distracted by the name. I really think that's a pretty name. So Sloane Hastings is working in the field of forensic science, and she's given a research task. For this task, she decides it's very important for her to understand the vastness of information you can get from those ancestry websites. So she decides to submit her own DNA to these websites, and when she does, the results come back. She finds out that her real name is actually Charlotte Magolius, aka Baby Charlotte, who has been missing since 1995. So we're following Charlotte, and she's trying to uncover this mystery around who she really is, what happened to her real parents, and I just feel like this is gonna be like very layered, very detailed, a very good, complete thriller mystery novel, and I can't wait for this to come out.
The next one is also on the 21st of May, Long Time Gone by Charlie Donnelly. I'm pretty sure Amanda won an ebook version of this. I did submit for a physical version since I don't do ebooks. And I want to say I even submitted twice for a Goodreads giveaway, and I, as far as I know, have not won that. So when DNA results reveal a disturbing connection to the mysterious disappearance of a famous baby nearly 3 decades ago, a forensic scientist is plunged into a dangerous search for answers. So I don't feel like I have necessarily read anything like that, and we really enjoyed Charlie Donnelly when we did our first reading vlog last year. I thought this would be a good one to put on the list, and if I get an ARC, maybe me and Amanda can do another Charlie Donnelly vlog. And I know JP out there, thanks for watching. She also really likes Charlie Donnelly too. So I think we're gonna try that for sure. The next one, I also have an ARC, and we have a vlog that Amanda is editing, and I'm sure it'll be posted within April. And it's called Swiped by L.A. Chilton. It's officially coming out on May 21st. I already read this, and I really, really loved this book. It was different. It was a funny thriller, lots of humor. I really had a good time reading this. So I am definitely on board for another funny thriller, should I come upon one. This one is about Gwen. She is online dating, and she ends up finding out that the dates that she has been on are slowly turning up dead. She ends up being a suspect since they are the dates that she's been on. She ends up trying to help solve some of them because she feels really bad that the dates, and they weren't good dates either, which is part of the problem. She feels bad that because she rejected them, that they're ending up dead. And I really didn't see the ending coming at all. It completely threw me. But once I saw who it was, it then started to click into place. I don't feel like it was made just to throw you off, or they just made it up so that you would never guess it. It really ended up seeming plausible. You just don't see it, and it's right in front of your face. So I really, really, really enjoyed it. So keep your eyes out for our vlog on this. I really enjoyed this one a lot. And it comes out on May 21st. All right, the next book, May 21st, and it's by Ruth Ware. Now, I have a complicated relationship with Ruth Ware. That sounded more than I intended it to sound. I have tried reading Ruth Ware, and one book I had to DNF, and I think that was Woman in Cabin 10. I just couldn't get into it, and then I read The It Girl, which was her release, I believe, last year or the year before. And I really didn't like it. There was a plot hole that I just could not stop thinking about. And so when I saw she has one coming out on the 21st, I hesitated. I don't know if I'm going to read this, but it's called One Perfect Couple. And the description made me think, okay, maybe I should give her another chance. And maybe the third chance is if I don't like it this time, I'm just gonna maybe shut the book on Ruth Ware and just not try her again. But this one is described as hearkening to Agatha Christie's classic And Then There Were None, which I haven't read yet. I keep wanting to read one of the better known Agatha Christie since the one I read last year was not exactly great. So I guess that doesn't bode well for this book either. This high tension and ingenious thriller, I mean, that's high praise coming for this. But as we know, sometimes the description doesn't always add up to what the book is. Follows 5 couples trapped on a storm-swept island as a killer stalks among them. Reality TV show is the premise. And I feel like I read that as well in another book. But if I say what book it is, it'll ruin the book. I thought I might try this. It's very possible I'll end up picking it up and trying it, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if it goes a good way. All right, another one on May 21st is by Stephen King, and I don't read Stephen King often. I've actually only read one Stephen King my whole life. And I think I get intimidated by him, the volume of his books, as well as a lot of his books. I mean, he has a ton, but also they always seem connected. So I always feel like, am I reading the one that I should be first? And so I think I end up not reading him because of all of that. Coming out on May 21st is a collection of 12 stories. So I feel like that's more palatable for me, for someone like me who's not well versed with Stephen King. So it's called You'd Like It Darker. And I saw some quotes by him regarding this new release. From what I remember, he said his fans have been asking for darker material. I think back to some of his early works that they wanted to see from him. So he pretty much said, you asked for it, here it is. And he even called it You Like It Darker. So it's a new collection of 12 stories that delve into the darker part of life. These stories are about fate, mortality, luck, and the folds of reality where anything can happen. And the description just really got me. Everything I've seen about this book makes me feel like, okay, I'm going to read this one for sure. Next one is really different, and I think it's by a smaller publisher because the publication date says May 22nd, which I believe isn't a Tuesday. Typically books come out on a Tuesday. And it's called Curse of the Nautilus by Raylan Kimmy. And it's a modernized Hawaiian mythology-inspired fairy tale of a sea nymph and the prince of the Atlantic. There once was a sea witch with powers that rivaled Poseidon himself. When she challenged him for his throne, he killed her, and her magic was locked away in a nautilus shell, lost in the dark ocean depths. Sought after by many, none had the power to wield it. Angela is a 26-year-old sea nymph who is still nursing a broken heart and meets a prince of the Atlantic Ocean. It gave there's a lot of mythology for it, but it almost gave hints also of like a Little Mermaid type situation. But it just is different. I don't typically read things like that. I mean, I do love mythology. I don't feel I read it as often anymore, but this one sounded just different than what I've been reading recently. And I do like to put some different genres on my TBR just to mix it up and not to feel like I keep reading the same thing again and again and again. But I feel like this year I've been really good about continually going in and out of different genres, and it's also making me want to read more. I obviously have been reading more this year and I want to keep at that pace. So I put that one on the TBR. I feel like I'm definitely going to be reading that one.
So moving on to May 28th, the first book I'm going to talk about is a book you've already seen because I had it on one of my TBR videos, and that is The Fireborne Blade by Charlotte Bond. I have already read this. This is a very short, it's like 170-ish pages. Little fantasy book. It's 164 pages, so it's very easy to read in one day or one sitting if you have enough time to sit and read. So this is a series. There is a second book, at least a duology. There's a second book already slated to come out on October 29th, and it is another little short book according to the information I could find online. It's called The Bloodless Prince, and if you want to know more about this book and my thoughts on this book, I will be posting a full ARC review vlog for this book, so stay tuned for that one.
And speaking of genres, especially ones that I love fiction, especially like literary thriller type fiction where it's considered fiction, but it also have hints of thriller mixed in. This one's called, and I have the arc, The Act of Disappearing by Nathan Gower. It comes out May 28th. And this one has a dual timeline, which I am a fan of the dual timeline. So it's current day following Julia, who is researching a photo given to her by a famous photographer of a woman falling from a train bridge. So she starts researching this to see what this woman's story is, if she can find out who she is and what happened. The other timeline is 1960s Kentucky, and the mystery starts to unravel. Julia digs into clues about this woman, and we see what's happening in both timelines. I find that kind of story very immersive. Like I get just lost in the story when it's like following both timelines. I get very sucked in. So I definitely am going to be reading this one. I might do an arc review for this one
too.
The
next book coming out May 29th that I want to discuss is called If Something Happens to Be by Alex Finley. Jen is reading this book and she says it's very fast paced, so I'm excited to get into it. We are going to be putting an arc review out for it, and since Jen is already reading this book and more familiar with it, I will let her give you more details.
The next one I have an arc as well. Amanda has one that we plan on doing an arc review like when we're done. I am about 100 pages in and I am loving this so far. Spoiler alert, I love it so far. It is so fast paced. That is why I'm loving it. And it reminds me of Dan Brown and like Da Vinci Code, and not because of any kind of religious or puzzles or anything like that about Da Vinci Code, but the pacing of Da Vinci Code, very short chapters, you get different viewpoints. It's not just one narrator that you're seeing a lot of different viewpoints to get the story. Sometimes that works and sometimes it can be overwhelming with how many different viewpoints you're getting, but this one I feel like it's very easy to follow. And what it's about is Ryan is haunted by a night when he was with his girlfriend. They're at like a lover's lane, and the next thing he knows, he's hit on the head. The car and his girlfriend has disappeared. Cut to 5 years later, and he changed his name. He was really questioned at the time. They thought he was involved, but they weren't able to prove anything. And he is on a trip in Italy, and news comes out that the car was found at the bottom of a lake. And there is a note that was preserved that they find that says, if something happens to me. So you're seeing the viewpoint from a detective who seems to be really good and trying to figure out what happened. You're seeing a couple other viewpoints that I haven't connected the dots yet to see how they are involved with this. And then of course, Ryan. And I'm loving it. I hope it stays that way. I don't know if the ending is going to make it or break it for me, but so far I'm very sucked in.
So now, moving on to June. I can't believe it. June already, talking about June. Anyways, the next book is June 4th, and it's called The Wren in the Holly Library. This is also on Jen's most anticipated, so I'm going to let her give some more details about this book. But the description says, a darker shade of magic meets A Six of Crows. I have read both of those books, and as you guys know, I'm a Lee Bardugo fan, so that seems like a very tall order, but also seems very, very appealing to me because I really enjoyed both of those books. I try not to put any weight on those blurbs though, because I have been so burned in the past. Jen knows what I'm talking about. I'm still salty about a blurb that got me into reading this book, and the book was nothing like the blurb promised. Anyways, it does say book 1 of the Oak and Holly cycle, so this is going to be a series, and I love that. I know Jen doesn't really like the series as much. I know she's like fine with duologies, but as far as long series goes, I think Jen just likes to wrap up the books and have it just be one book. But I really love series because especially if it's characters or worlds that you enjoy reading about, because I love spending more time and getting more stories out of those worlds and those characters. So in this world, it has monsters in it, and the female main character in this book breaks into a library that's inhabited by a monster, and she ends up striking a deal with this monster. She gives up some of her freedom to help this monster out somehow. If you read the full description, it's kind of reminding me of Beauty and the Beast. So I'm not gonna say this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling or anything like that, but it's just kind of giving me those vibes. You got this woman that's kind of locked into this tower. She makes a deal with this beast, or this monster. So we'll see where this goes, but I am really anticipating this book. It is gonna have some sprayed edges and stuff, so it's gonna be a pretty book coming out, but the description also drew me in.
Next one is very possible, and we've made it to June. Yay! I'm about halfway through my list. We're getting there. So the next one most likely is on Amanda's most anticipated as well. And it's one that's going to have the decorated edges, the very pretty book, so make it really easy to want to buy. And it is fantasy. It's called The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lindy. Comes out June 4th. And it's Darker Shade of Magic meets Six of Crows. Now, given I haven't read either of those, but I know both of those have very good reputation. So that sounded like an interesting mix. Alternate day New York where monsters live among humankind. And that is something I know I mostly want to buy it because it looks very pretty. But I'm sure it's also a good story.
So the next book coming out on June 4th I want to talk about is The Unwedding by Ali Condi. I did get a ARC edition of this book on NetGalley. I have read 4 of her books in the past. I read the Matched trilogy, which is a YA dystopian novel, and I read Atlantis. And I am not really into YA stuff lately. I mean, Divine Rivals, Ruthless Vows, Daughter of the Siren Queen, The Shadows Between Us, those are all exceptions, okay? Those are exceptions. Anyways, this is an adult mystery thriller. So when I saw this was coming out by this author, I just immediately had to put it on my most anticipated list. I know Jen is also going to talk about this book, but it is a closed door mystery. And I'm kind of finding that the closed door mystery thrillers are kind of my thing. Like, I really like them. I've enjoyed most of the ones that I've read. So really excited about this one coming out, and Jen's going to talk about it a little more.
Another one on June 4th. It's called The Unwedding by Ali Condi. Ellery was supposed to be spending her 20th wedding anniversary with her husband at a gorgeous Big Sur resort in California. But now she's alone and a wedding is happening while she's staying at the resort. A murder happens and a mudslide takes out the road to the resort where another murder happens again, and it's clear something more is going on at this resort. Everyone has secrets, including Ellery. And it's another, I guess they call that like locked room, where they're locked in this place, just like the other one that I mentioned that's also similar to Daisy Darker. So I feel like I haven't read Ali Condi yet, and I feel like that sounded like a good one I might pick up and read, depending on how much I'm wanting to continue to read locked room mysteries.
Okay, so moving on to June 11th. And I know I've said this with every single date probably, but June 11th is a big date for Jen and I because Frida McFadden is releasing The Housemaid Is Watching, which is the 3rd installment in her Housemaid series. And you guys know when Frida releases a book, Jen and I do a vlog. We have backlist titles of hers that we want to read. We want to read them all, and we are definitely doing a vlog for this one. And if you all don't already know about Frida McFadden's The Housemaid series, then bless your heart. We have vlogged 3 reading vlogs, and we have read a lot of her popular books. We actually have a Frida McFadden playlist, so I will link it all in the description below, and you guys need to check it out.
All right, June 11 has some big titles, but the biggest, and you guys know that we are Frida McFadden fans, and I wish I had the arc for this video. On Frida McFadden's Facebook page, she had put a contact at her new publisher, Poison Pen Press, the name and information to reach out to this person to ask for arcs. And I had reached out last year and I didn't hear anything back. And then this year I reached out again when Frida had mentioned it. And I got an email back saying that she was going to send me an arc of The Housemaid Is Watching. I haven't received it yet, and I am waiting with bated breath. So hopefully I will get it. The second I get it, I am definitely reading it. So hopefully that'll be soon. It doesn't come out till June 11th, so there is some time. And obviously it is the third installment of the Housemaid series that Frida has done. And this time the housemaid is in the suburbs eyeing her neighbors and their secrets while trying to put her past far behind her. Trying is underlined. So we'll see what happens and what next persona the housemaid has taken on to hide from her past and what murder she might be getting herself into.
The next book coming out June 11th. Y'all know us, okay? You know Jen and I. We're not big romance readers. We might dabble in a little romantasy. Think Fourth Wing for that. We might read some recommended spicy books for some reading vlogs. And we may sprinkle in some wholesome contemporary romance from time to time. And we are not well vested by any means or very familiar with the romance genre. But you cannot be on YouTube and not hear some very, very popular romance authors' names over and over again. I'm talking authors like Lucy Score, Mariana Zapata, Christina Lauren, Emily Henry, Lynn Painter, and Catherine Center. So as a reader, I like to push the boundaries a little bit. I like to read things every now and then outside of my comfort zone. It either helps me find something that I wouldn't have normally read but really enjoyed, and helps me find new books, new authors, maybe new types of books or tropes that I like, or it reminds me why I don't read those books and that I just need to stick to the books that I know I love. Either way, I'm gonna read this book and I'm gonna find out, is this gonna be a book that is going to get me more interested in rom-coms and the romance genre, or is this book going to tell me, okay, Amanda, you're out of your lane here, just go back go back to your fantasy novels that you're used to. I will be posting an ARC review for you guys. It should be an interesting one. Stay tuned for that one.
Another one on June 11th is called Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I haven't read Paul Tremblay yet, and I really want to. He already has a few out that I've been wanting to read. And this one is about a chilling twist on the cursed film genre. 1993, young filmmakers spend 4 weeks making a horror movie and only 3 scenes were ever released, yet it became a cult classic. And Hollywood is pushing for a reboot because, you know, that's what happens. That's like real life. Reboots are always happening. One surviving cast member remembers all too well what happened on set, but helps make the reboot anyway. Obsessive, psychologically chilling, that breathlessly builds to an unforgettable mind-bending conclusion. And if you put mind-bending in it, I'm usually signing up for that book. So maybe this will be the one that I start Paul Tremblay with. The next one I have an ARC for. It's called Middletide by Sarah Crouch. Comes out June 11th as well. A woman is found hanging on the property of a failed writer. First thought to be suicide, but further inspection seems to be a copycat and a plot in one of his books. He thinks he is being framed and fights to find out what is behind it. And it's considered literary suspense, which is one of my favorites, as I said earlier. And since I have an ARC, this will definitely be something I'm reading, and hopefully I'll get an ARC review out for this one too.
So, June 18th, guys. We need to talk about June 18th because I have four books coming out June 18th. It's definitely my heaviest hitter as far as days go. The first book I want to talk about is called The Next Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. I got an ARC from NetGalley. I have already read this book. I read The Last Mrs. Parrish back in 2018. I think the book originally came out in 2017, and I just really enjoyed that book. The twist at that time was like kind of very memorable for me, and I just enjoyed it so much. So when I saw that these authors were putting out another installment in this series, I was shocked. And because it's been so long, like normally with series, authors will put things out kind of like a year, maybe two apart. But since the original book came out in 2017, this follow book is coming out in 2024. It was like a big difference. But in the back of this book, in the acknowledgments sections, the authors do, or maybe it's the author's note, but they do talk about the fact that they weren't necessarily planning on putting this story out and continuing the story of these characters, but I am glad that they did. This was a pretty fun thriller. I am going to do an ARC review of this book, and I will be posting it, so stay tuned for that if you want more information about this book. But if you like thrillers, I would definitely recommend this author, Liv Constantine. It's actually two sisters that work together, but I also read The Senator by these authors, and it was really good as well. So I highly recommend this author if you're into thrillers.
We are on to June 18th. We are in the home stretch of everything that I have marked for the most anticipated. This one is called We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clyer. Eerily haunting debut and Reddit hit, soon to be a Netflix original film starring Blake Lively, about two homeowners whose lives are turned upside down when the house's previous residents unexpectedly visit. And it sounded like the book that I wasn't a huge fan of, though there was a lot more going on in the book, and I am forgetting the name of the book. I believe it's called The World We Left Behind, or Leave the World Behind. And I read that at the end of last year when I was sick with COVID, and I did not enjoy it, though I did enjoy the Netflix film. So if I don't enjoy the book, apparently it's going to be a Netflix film anyway.
All right, so the next book coming out June 18th is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. Now, I have read 5 Riley Sager books, okay? I'm not going to go into all of them. I'm sure if you guys have watched YouTube, you've heard of Riley Sager. He writes a lot of thrillers. My least favorite of the 5 books I've read was Survive the Night, and I know that was one of his oldest books. And my most favorite so far has been The Only One Left, and I actually gave that book 5 stars. And I normally don't rate thrillers 5 stars, but I felt like that story was just so layered and fleshed out, and it was a thriller book, definitely like a page turner, but it also had that extra something in it that just put the thriller book on another level for me. So that so far has been my favorite. And I know Jen really liked The Only One Left as well. I don't think she gave it 5 stars, but she also really liked that book. So for me, when I'm looking back on the Riley Sager books, it becomes very obvious that the more he writes books, the newer the books are, the more he develops his writing style and skills, the better and better his books get. So I'm thinking, if I gave The Only One Left 5 stars, and he continues upon this path of just making better and better books, this next book should be a banger. I'm really, really excited about this next book coming out. Jen and I discussed possibly doing a Riley Sager reading vlog, kind of like similar to the Frida McFadden reading vlogs that we do. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, let us know, because we are talking about putting that out in June when this book releases.
We have some heavy hitters left. June 18th brings us another new Riley Sager, and it's called Middle of the Night. I've been desperately trying to get one of the ARCs through a Goodreads giveaway. This one is about Ethan at 10 years old, wakes up after backyard camping, and his best friend Billy disappeared from the tent. No one knows where Billy went. And 30 years later, Ethan returns home and notices a lot of strange occurrences again. Ethan starts to investigate, and it leads him to the woods and possibly finally to the truth of what happened to Billy. I really want to read another Riley Sager. That one's an intriguing description for a book. Like, I'm definitely going to pick up another Riley Sager, and it most likely will be the new one that's coming out.
The next book coming out June 18th is How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey. And I have heard so many mixed reviews about this author. I know he's very well known in the horror book realm. Last year he put out the 13th episode, which I had on, I think, a most anticipated, or at least I really wanted to read that book. I never got around to it, but I also heard very mixed reviews on that book as well. I find that a lot of people really like it, really don't like it, or like really liked the first half, really didn't like the second half. So if y'all know me, curiosity kills the cat every time when a book or an author is talked about a lot, especially if there's like very mixed reviews or like controversial opinions about it. I have to read it, and I have to think for myself and for my own opinion and decide on which side of the aisle I stand. So when this book comes out, I really hope to get around to reading it this time. I'm very curious to read him and find out, is this a book that is he an author that's for me? Is this a book I'm gonna enjoy, or am I gonna be like, I could take it or leave it? No, not really interested in reading more of his books. So I didn't read 13th episode. I missed that one. Of course, you can go back and read it, but I do want to get to this book this year that's coming out by him. So this book has been described as darkly humorous, and you're following an 80s slasher film director who has set as his mission to go out and film the most horrifying horror movie ever. And of course, what is he gonna use to film this super scary movie on? A demonic camera, of course. I mean, what else would you use? I don't know if I'm gonna like this story. I do think the humorous horror mystery aspect seems funny and interesting, intriguing. I've never read a book that has sounded like this before, so I'm curious, and we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out if this is an author for me or not.
The next one is another ARC that I have, and this one is huge fiction, same as it ever was, by Claire Lombardo. She wrote another book that everyone was raving about, the most fun we ever had, and it was optioned for television by Reese Witherspoon. So this one is an examination of a woman's life in the vein of Jonathan Franzen and Elizabeth Strout, two huge fiction writers. Julia Ames is hitting middle age and hits a rough patch with her marriage and family. This reminded me of two authors that I always read so many books by, Anita Shreve and Sue Miller. Two of my favorite authors back when I was reading in my 20s, and I really feel like this is something I can definitely get lost in fiction again. So I got the ARC, so I definitely wanted to read this one. It sounded just right up the alley of my first love fiction. So definitely on the pile for, who knows, next few months I'll be reading this. Hopefully I read it before it officially comes out and I can do an ARC review.
So the next book coming out on June 18th that I'm anticipating, it's called The Witchstone by Henry H. Neff. And this book I found on Edelweiss. I'm sorry, it's gonna be hard for me to get used to saying it that way, because for years and in my head I've said Edelweiss, but Edelweiss. Okay, so I found this book on Edelweiss, and it is a little outside of my comfort zone. So supposedly, this is a laugh-out-loud, high-stakes novel that combines the humor of Emily Henry and the spellbinding fantasy of Neil Gaiman. So that's a tall order. I know Emily Henry is huge in the romance world, a huge name. Neil Gaiman is huge in the fantasy world, and that's a tall order, but we will see. In this book, you're following Laszlo, and Laszlo is a demon, and he is just a loser. He is the least productive demon in the whole hell realm. The manager that's managing him in hell is gone, and a new manager steps in, and this new manager says, you know what, buddy, you're gonna ship up and get in shape or we're kicking you out in 6 days. So he goes on this mission to probably save his life, save his job, and he teams up with a human who wants to help him on his mission, because in doing this would also break her curse. And it says that they travel around the whole world. They go on this big journey to get this task done. So I'm just curious. I don't know. I don't know about this book. I'm not sure. Again, it's one of those that's kind of iffy, but it has my curiosity peaking. I've not read anything like it before, so I just thought I would give this one a try.
The next one is by an author, again, that I've been wanting to read, and it seems to be the year for that. It's the perfect time to pick up one, and the author is Lucy Foley. This one is called The Midnight Feast, comes out June 18th. It's a locked room murder. I guess that's another one. I didn't realize this one was a locked room murder. It's opening weekend of the Manor, a luxury resort built on top of secrets. All have an agenda, all have a past. Not everyone will survive. So it's another locked room one. I don't know if I will end up, depending on how many locked room books I read, that may be one I also add to the pile. The next author is another author I haven't tried yet that I really want to, and I do have one of her books. I can see it because it's yellow. She wrote The 7-Year Slip. This has come on high recommendation. I haven't read it yet. I bought it and then ends up on my TBR pile as most things. I have a lot of books I want to read. This author, Ashley Poston, has a new one coming out called A Novel Love Story. And the novel love story is about Elsie. She heads to a book club retreat. She needs the escape and loves losing herself in books. Along the way, she breaks down and finds herself in a quaint town eerily similar to the small town in her favorite book. Elsie is sure it is fate that has brought her to this town and feels the town's happy ending is entwined with hers. It sounded like a cute romance. I really try and put romance on my TBR to help break up the thrillers and then the fantasy and the fiction, and that one sounded like the perfect one to add to my list. I'm ending my most anticipated with a horror novel, and it's by a author I still haven't tried yet. He's been on my wanting to read list before. I'm sure I mentioned other books by him, the past most anticipated. This one's called Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman. June 25th is the release date. It's a horror, and he is the author of Bird Box. I did see the movie on Netflix. I just haven't read his books yet. A chilling horror novel about a haunting told from the perspective of a young girl whose troubled family is targeted by an entity she calls Other Mommy. Sounds really creepy. So that is almost 30 books that I am looking forward to checking out more and hopefully reading. This is probably the pile I'm definitely going to be reading, a lot more chance than anything else since I physically have them. And I can't wait. What do you guys want to read that's coming out? Did we skip something that you've been looking forward to? Are any of these the ones that you really want to read? Let us know in the comments. I can't wait to read these and let you guys know what I think of the arcs. I hope you guys have learned a lot more books that you can add to your TBR as well. And until next time.